Well, good evening everyone. On behalf of the Gympie Times and the Gympie Chamber of Commerce, welcome to our Meet the Mayoral Candidates Forum for the upcoming Gympie Regional Council elections. Tonight's your chance to hear from each of the 6 mayoral candidates on how they will go about the business of being mayor should they be elected. The questions being asked tonight have been selected from those submitted by the public, our readers, to the Gympie Times over recent weeks. We hope the answers will give you an insight into who should be our next mayor and who will be responsible for the new Gympie Regional Council. Just as a matter of interest, the new council will have a budget of approximately $100 million. Will cover an area of 6,898 square kilometres and will have a population base of 43,000 people. Each candidate will be asked the same questions with 2.5 minutes to respond to each question. The draw was held at the start of the evening. The numbers you see on the candidates' name cards there aren't how to vote numbers. They're actually the number allocation on how their numbers were drawn, and we'll rotate through each candidate through the evening to keep it as fair as we possibly can. Each candidate will also give a 4-minute address on why I should be mayor and my vision for the region. The evening will be adjudicated by Kevin Smith, a prominent local businessman and our 2007 Gympie Chamber of Commerce Business Person of the Year. And Indra Groth, President of the Gympie Toastmasters Club, has kindly agreed to be our timekeeper for the evening, and she's got our little light panel there which we'll use to time the candidates as they go through their speeches. I guess they're no strangers to any of you, but I'll do the courtesy of introducing them. Mr Daniel Tavone, a local farmer. Councillor Mick Bernardus, current Mayor of Cooloola Shire Council. Mr Peter Cantrell, previously Councillor for Division 5. Councillor Ron Arm, current Councillor for Division 2. Mr George Groth, a local businessman. And Councillor Ron Dine, current Mayor of Kilkeevan Shire Council. Just before I hand over to Karen, can we just make sure the mobile phones are turned off for the evening? Thank you. I'll now call on Karen to take over the evening, and he'll be handling all the questions as we go through the night. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew. And look, I'd like to welcome our 6 candidates, and I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for attending tonight's meeting. With the amalgamations of councils across our state, these current elections are one of the most important council elections since Federation. Our region is geographically positioned at the top end of Queensland's southeast. We are therefore experiencing above average growth, strong investment and a changing demographic. The person elected as Mayor this Saturday will have a great impact on the future of this region. We are looking for a person who will have a capable and committed vision for this region and its residents. Be a strong leader, be capable of working with members of the community, industry leaders and all levels of government to ensure our region remains a growing, vibrant, desirable area to work, live, enjoy our community and proud to be residents of this region. We have with us tonight the 6 candidates who are willing to offer themselves to be elected as Mayor of Gympie Regional Council, and Andrew's previously introduced them. We anticipate that tonight's proceedings will assist you in deciding who should be Mayor of the Gympie region. In relation to the conduct of tonight, I wish to reinforce that I will not tolerate from either the candidates or members of the audience personal insults or any attacks on the character of any individual or interjections during a candidate's speech or answering of questions. Thank you, and I'd like to hand over to our first person, Mr Ron Dine, to give us his vision if he was elected Mayor of Gympie.
Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. Mr Chairman, fellow candidates, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming out this evening to what will be the only mayoral candidates night before what is arguably the most important election that we as residents of the Gympie Regional Council have faced. It is unfortunate that there is not also an opportunity to meet the councillor candidates, as the 8 councillors are very much active players in the running of our council. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Gympie Chamber of Commerce and the Gympie Times for organising this event. As I said, this is an important election And in my discussion with people, it appears that most are concerned who is going to be mayor of the region. Whilst this is relevant, it should not be forgotten that the mayor has but one vote, and residents need to pay particular attention to who are going to be the 8 councillors. I believe that this is essential, as we do not need a further 4 years of dysfunctional local government that has plagued the current Shire Council. I believe that we need a mayor who has a proven record of leading a forward-thinking council team that works together to achieve results. We would benefit from a mayor who is a leader, is honest and keen to include all councillors in the decision-making process. I have a vision that this council will lead this region into another level of economic prosperity and development whilst maintaining our rural and coastal lifestyles. I have no doubt that the first few years are going to be consumed with developing an effective council that is adequately bedded in the variety of council laws, rates and events that the Regional Council has inherited. When elected as Mayor of Gympie Regional Council, it is my intention to develop a council in which all councillors are included and not have the divisiveness that currently plagues Cooloola Council. Develop a portfolio system to give councillors ownership. The portfolio system that I envisage is that councillors would have ownership of portfolios of tourism, finance, roads, sewage and water, etc., just to name a few. I would establish liaison councillors in 8 areas to develop connections between residents and council. This then overcomes the requirement for divisional councillors and is developed on distances covered and not necessarily population, as would be required if divisions were established in this regional council. I would have regular councillor meetings in the local halls where the mayor and 8 councillors are present to hear the issues that concerns residents. I believe this will permit residents to have 9 councillors working for an adequate resolution to the identified issues. I would create openness and honesty by permitting questions after each general meeting. I would move the council chambers to the historical Gympie City Council building at the 5 Ways, thus developing a service area with rates, council, library, nursing mothers, senior citizens and the post office in close proximity. Maintenance of the rural and coastal lifestyle. I would encourage development, both economic and micro business in the townships and villages to advance these settlements. I would establish a community facility at Rainbow Beach. I would maintain effective support to the art galleries, libraries and iconic events such as the Tin Can Bay Seafood Festival, Gold Rush and Kilkeegan Horse Ride. Finally, I would like to wish all candidates all the best in the forthcoming elections. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. We'll now start. We have 6 questions being submitted to the Gympie Times who've been selected and presented to our candidates just on the night when they've walked in. First question of the night is, what is your stance on the proposed Traveston Crossing Dam, and what do you see as the opportunities or downside for the future of this region should it proceed? So we'll flow through the order as I said from 1 to 6, and I'll ask Ron to start with that again.
All right, the question in relation to the Traveston Crossing Dam, I think I was the first mayor in the whole of the Mary Valley to come out and say that we didn't want the Traveston Crossing Dam. I must admit I was a bit selfish from that perspective, because I was looking at it strictly from my Kilkeegan Shire hat, and I believe that the Traveston Crossing Dam was going to impact greatly on the irrigation potential of people in Kilkeegan Shire. When I first came here, they indicated that, DPI and Water indicated that they weren't going to have meters on Widgie Creek and Wide Bay Creek. Lo and behold, last year they've put meters on a unregulated supply, $500 a year per metre, whether you've got water or not, and I can assure you in Wide Bay Creek we haven't got any water. And I believe what they're trying to do is dissuade people from utilising irrigation so that there is still some flow in the Mary Valley, in the Mary River, after Traveston Crossing Dam is completed. With that said, that I'm against the construction of the Traveston Crossing Dam. I think there are better alternatives to establish the water supply for South East Queensland. But I also believe that if the dam is to be built, then we have to be able to get as much social capital as possible out of the construction. I look at the Kingaroy and Ganango area with Tarong Power, and they've got substantial social capital out of that investment there, and I believe that we need to do the same thing. I'd hate to see a bobcat operator coming from Bow Desert to do work on the Traveston Crossing Dam if it's going to go ahead. When we have adequate bobcat operators, and I use that strictly as an example, and we can go right across the board, that we have those operators in this area, and I maintain that we need to ensure that the Gympie region and the whole of the Gympie region benefits work-wise from the construction of this dam. So, in essence, we need to get as much social capital out of this as we can, and we also need to be able to get as much work output out of this dam if it's to go ahead. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My position in relation to the Traveston Crossing Dam is virtually a carbon copy of Ron's, insofar as I see very little, if any, benefit. I had the opportunity to go and have a good look over the proposed site only a week ago, and that country has never looked better, I'm told, and it would be a crime to put it underwater. The government has carried out alternate or tests or plans on alternate sources of appropriate water. I am told that the state government has a plan and a proposal for a desalination plant off Bribie Island, which council also nominated to the state government as being a reasonable and viable and a more cost-effective alternative, and that the state government has taken those documents to Cabinet, so they now have Cabinet confidentiality and they are not allowed to, not available to the public. There are two opportunities for benefit the community as I see it, and one is the employment opportunity and the ability to generate income and jobs within Gympie and its region. But that same benefit could be obtained, not to the same degree, but a similar benefit by the raising of Barumba Dam, which is a far more suitable alternative. It is a far better site, and the raising of the wall of Barumba would allow for sufficient water to be stored to cater largely for the Sunshine Coast, for Gympie, Maryborough and Harvey Bay, and that's the solution the state government should be looking at. On the downside, and I don't think I've got enough time left to talk about all the downside, there is the loss of the magnificent agricultural land in the Mary Valley, and there is also the environmental impact that starts well upstream from the dam and extends to where I live at Rainbow Beach, where we have Ramsar areas protected by Australian international treaty, which are going to be totally ruined, and the environmental impact statements certainly confirm all of that. My stance is no dam, no dam, no damn dam.
I had the good fortune to spend many years in the Snowy Valley, where Lake Jindabyne was put up many years ago, and saw the devastation that occurred in the Snowy Valley in between the Jindabyne Dam and Orbost and Marlow. 13% of the water that used to go down the Snowy is all that is left to go down the river. It is like a desert. You see the shadow of a river that used to be there. I believe that we have to obstruct the state government in anything that it does to impose this dam on the people. I think that if we have to pull it down brick by brick, as soon as we have a legal license, that's what should be done. It is a crime. It is a theft. It's a theft of the people's resources in this area to go to other people. It should be eliminated completely from the minds and the problems of people's lives that it's caused and disrupted. I believe that we can still stop the dam, and with the people's willpower, I think that that's very possible. Thank you.
As you know, the decision to build the dam was made in April of last year, and in May of that same year, I convened a meeting of all the mayors of the Mary River, and I'm now chairman of the Council of Mary River Mayors. I want to take you back a little bit to when Wayne Johnson was the Premier of the state. In 1993-1994, he, as Premier, advised by the then Principal Advisor, Mr. Kevin Rudd. A report was issued saying that the Mary River, the Traviston Crossing Dam should not proceed, based on the fact that it would cost too much money. The price was in the report of $125 million. Read now $3 billion. It would inundate too much rich alluvial land. Now read 76 square kilometres. And it would displace too many people. Now read 2,000 people or more. But the Council of the Mary River Mayors commissioned two organisations to conduct reports. One was the University of Sustainable Futures from Sydney, Professor Stuart White, and Dr. Johnson from Cardiff. And that report was very succinct in its delivery, and that also went to the government advising why the dam should not be built, offering alternatives. But it said the dam is not needed nor is it necessary because there are better alternatives and more cost-effective options. Professor McIndoe also carried out a similar report that cost the community of Carlton $20,000. But I went to Canberra and I spoke with Senator Ian Campbell and Senator Andrew Bartlett, where I sought and I believe we were successful in initiating the Senate inquiry. The dam ought not to proceed insofar that Groth made the decision back in '94 not to proceed with the Traviston Crossing Dam. He also made the decision not to proceed with the Wolfdean Dam. 85% of the land had been purchased for the Wolfdean Dam, and when he got into office, he put the land back on the market. Only 70% of the land is required for purchase thus far for the Traviston Crossing Dam. But most of the properties acquired are in stage 2, which will not be needed until 25 or 30 years hence. There are no upsides to this dam. It won't create the employment. When you speak to people, the employment will be housed in construction camps, but not local people.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've made no secret about my public support for this proposal. I believe it would be very good for this region if the dam does go ahead for many reasons, some of which I will cover in my speech tonight. The main reasons, I guess, are the job creation and the flood reduction of our town, but also making Gympie a tourist destination, similar to Fairburn Dam out at Emerald. At the moment, tourists don't come to Gympie, they pass through Gympie. They might stay here for a night or two, and then they go away. We all know the tourist industry has grown exponentially over the last few years. We should be here to capture that, and this dam will help us achieve that. I believe if people come to this region to visit the dam, they will stay here for weeks on end, as they do at other places. And when they're staying here, they're spending their money in our region. And that will create even more job opportunities. I can see this area becoming a huge tourist destination in the future. With this dam, Rainbow Beach, Tin Can Bay and other outlying areas including Kilkeevan and Gaberi, I believe if people come to this area and stay here, they will be doing day trips to all the outer regions, and we can really boost the economy of this region. Like I said, I've made it very public that I support the dam. I know there's some other candidates also that support the dam, but they won't say so publicly. that's up to them. I'm not a hypocrite. At least I'm standing up here telling you what I think. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I don't support them building a dam. I don't think they should go ahead with it. It's on prime rural land. I know even putting up my buildings down at the boat place, I ran into a lot of trouble. I had to prove to the state government and council that that was not prime rural land. Yet they are stealing our prime rural land and going to put water over it. It's going to end up a mud pit. It should not happen. 15 years ago, they told us they were going to lift Barumba. They didn't do it. If they hadn't done that then, we wouldn't have the problem we're in. As for it helping our economy, yeah, if it does go ahead, it probably will help our economy. But for how long? And most of those people are going to be outside contractors. They're not going to be workers from this town. It is not going to help this region. That money will leave this town. It's not going to happen. It's not going to keep coming to us. I believe, like Fairburn, if you've been to Fairburn Dam, it's the first time it's flowed over there in 20 years. I've chased red claw on it from my son who is now at Kangaroo, and yeah, it's not good, no water below it, and those people are starving below it. We need to make sure this dam does not go ahead. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our next candidate to tell us his vision for the Gympie region is Mr. Peter Campbell. Thanks, Peter.
Mr Chairman, fellow candidates, ladies and gentlemen, I too would like to thank the organisers for the opportunity to appear before you tonight and say a few words. I'll tell you a little about myself. I'm a solicitor by profession, having had my own practice in Brisbane for a number of years, and I remain admitted as a solicitor of the Supreme Court of Queensland and the High Court of Australia. My wife and I moved to Rainbow Beach some 17 years ago, where we built some shops and conducted a retail business, all of which we sold in 2003. I'm a former member of the Gympie District Health Council and was chairman of the Kalula Coast Local Ambulance Committee for some 10 years. My wife comes from Chinchilla. We have two daughters. One lives in Chinchilla with her family and the other in Gympie with her family, where we have two grandchildren going to school here. I had 7 years as a councillor on the Kalula Shire Council, 3 years of which I was chairman of the Planning and Development Committee. In March last year, I stated that I believe the integrity of Council's planning scheme was under attack from Council itself, that power in Council vested in too few hands, and that big picture items were constantly being put off and not being addressed. Sadly, all have proved to be correct over the past 12 months, during which Council has become increasingly dysfunctional. Those persons responsible, and I emphasise the word persons, should not be rewarded by being re-elected. I do not subscribe to the view that Council can simply override its planning scheme any time it has the numbers. Be it myself or one of the other candidates, I believe it to be essential that the Mayor of the new Regional Council is a person who has significant Kalula Shire Council experience, as 90% of the new Council in all relevant areas will be the former Kalula Shire, and this is not something you pick up overnight. It requires a person who can hit the ground running in attending to the host of matters pertaining to amalgamation that will need to be addressed from day one, as well as attending to the many and varied other council matters that will arise daily. There is no time to learn the ropes. Short term, I will be seeking to restore public confidence in council, confirm opposition to the dam, and medium to long term there will be Shire-wide consultation to determine our vision for the next 5, 10 and 20 years, and I will develop and pursue plans and policies to achieve this. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Peter. Question 2 for the evening is, what is your position on the visions for the new Regional Council, and do you believe the status of councillors should be a full or part-time position? As Mayor, what will you do about it?
For those who have followed the question of council the new regional council not having divisions would be aware of the letters I wrote to the Gympie Times at the time that the councils took the councils in their secret meeting took the decision to dispense with divisions. I have sought answers as to why that took place, and to date I have not received any satisfactory answers. I have my own ideas, as no doubt do you. I feel that we need divisions. We didn't have a division on the coast. Following the election in '97, we didn't have any representation either. And I worked together with other local representatives to ensure that a Division 5 was created, and I always had the good fortune to represent that division from its inception in 2000 until last year. I believe there is a strong feeling out there in the community that people are disenfranchised. There is a strong feeling in the outer regions of the Shire that the new council is going to be Gympie-centric, and all the councillors and the mayor are going to come from Gympie, and there will be no representation for the regional areas whatsoever. The way that can be addressed in the short term is possibly appointing de facto councillors, but that really defeats the issue as to why we don't have councillors if we don't have divisions in the first place. But we need to appoint de facto councillors so that people have a person they can direct their inquiries to. Having divisions is very much a two-way street, that the people in the division know who to contact as their representative, and the councillor concerned, being within that division, is often able to bring to the council table local knowledge that otherwise wouldn't be there. One of the I've heard the argument that not having divisions, that everybody who is on council will have the incentive to represent all of the area. To me, I think that's a lot of rot, simply because 76% of the voting public is in Gympie and 24% of it is in regional areas. So why should a Gympie-based councillor be compelled to take into account the reasons or the concerns of the regional areas? Thank you.
I believe in divisions. I opposed the destruction of divisions, and if elected, I would immediately petition the state government to return the Gympie Regional Council to divisions. I would immediately move to introduce 4 divisions, two councillors to each division, responsible to reporting back to the council the problems and the impositions on those people. And so I believe that with that system we could function quite well until they could be returned on a more formal basis, which hopefully will be at the following election. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go back a little bit into history if I could. Some year or so ago, the council debated whether or not it should have 2 councillors for the number 5 division, because the comment was made that an area of the Division 5 was too large for 1 councillor. So council set to increase the land, and because we work on a quota system, it's set up by the state government, 1 councillor for 1,800 electors. So we set 2, and we decided that we would take the 1 councillor from number 2 and add to number 5, and increase the land mass to about 1,100 square kilometres, and have 2 councillors for 4,000 electors. That submission went to Brisbane for approval, because, as I said, we bowed to the dictate of the council, who said that 2,000 people, 1 elector, one councillor too much. For 1 elector, 1 council looked after. The government made this decision. Ladies and gentlemen, the council had Cockheaven, Tyro and Cooloola had 2 days in which to make a decision. Our staff, our IT staff, came up with the collective census area, and Cockheaven would have gone from 3,200 square kilometres to 4,000 square kilometres with one councillor. About 5 miles east of that, or 5 kilometres east of that, there's a little area about 5 square kilometres with 3,700 voters. And Tyro would have been extended down to the Cooloola National Park. We had 2 days in which to make a decision, but previously it took us almost 8 months to come up with an agreed map that we could send to Brisbane. But the government has left the question open as to whether or not there will be divisions. It has said quite plainly that should the current system that you'll be voting on Saturday the 15th does not work, then the opportunity is there for the council and the community to petition the state government and have the system changed. And if this is the will of the people, then I think the council should go along with it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start with the second part of the question first, which is, should it be a full-time or part-time position? Obviously, with the responsibility of council, it has to be a full-time position. If I was elected, I would employ a full-time manager onto my property, so I can give this job up 100% of my time. As far as divisions are concerned, I'm not convinced. Divisions by their very nature are divisive. Now, if you have divisions for your area, you're going to have 1 representative for your area. Without divisions, you're going to have 9 representatives for your area. And I'll cover this a bit more in my speech. Contacting your council should be as easy as picking up the phone. And by contacting 9 councillors or 8 councillors and 1 mayor has to be better than just contacting your 1 councillor all the time. If elected, I will treat every region of this electorate the same. There'll be no differences. It's like having a number of kids in your family. You treat them all the same regardless, and that's what I would ensure would happen. If one person was to ring me up from Guinea, I would treat them the same as if one person rang me up from Central Guinea. There can be no differences. So that's why I stand on divisions. Thank you.
I believe we should have divisions back, and I will fight for divisions back. As we go for councillors, yes, it's a full-time job, and I will be expecting them to be there from 8 to 5 days a week. They're going to put their money in, and they're going to do it. I believe as a mayor, I will be all over the Shire, as I've already been now. I'm talking to people daily, and when I'm elected, I'll be the same. You will find that I want to run weekly excursions. I believe all councillors and I should be out meeting the public. Before we go and vote on anything, whether it's town planning, a building, or something like what's happened in these sale yards and the problem I've had there, we should be there before we vote on that, and we should knowingly know what we're about. There's no good later saying, oh, someone in the office said this was okay. We are responsible to you people, me the mayor and the 8 councillors, so we must be out there seeing you. You're paying us to do the job, we've got to give you a service, you haven't been getting it, and we're going to give it to you. Thank you.
I'm recorders against divisions. I must admit that Kilkeegan Shire, and I speak strictly from that, prior to the supposed secret meeting at the pavilion, which wasn't very secret, I'll tell you. We went around our halls in Kilkeegan, the 6 Shire halls. We had 273 people at those meetings, and we established our alternate position to amalgamation. Everyone but one person didn't want amalgamation, but we decided we'd have a fallback position. And one of the things that we discussed was divisions. Kilkeegan Shire has been without divisions for the last 3 terms, and we found that it's worked very well. We then went along to that meeting and we voted that we didn't want divisions. And I must admit that after my residents have indicated to me that they didn't want divisions, then I'd be a hypocrite if I then went along to that that secret meeting, and indicated that we were happy with divisions. That secret meeting was interesting because it was really in the hands of Kalula Shire. They had the largest number of councillors. They voted all over the place, and we have no divisions. I believe that we can overcome the lack of divisions, and we utilise that system in Kilkeegan. We have a portfolio system so that each councillor's got ownership of where they're going and so forth. We also go around to all the halls on a regular basis, the mayor, all of the councillors and the senior staff, so that people that have issues can be there. And we've got it down to that stage now where we can go to most of our halls, and we actually have people there to commend us on the performance that we're doing and so forth. And I'd dearly love to see that occur in the Gympie Regional Council. That's what we're all about. We're here to provide a service to people. And I believe you're going to have a mayor and 8 councillors working actively to provide you with the appropriate service. I'm still against divisions, but I'm man enough to say that if the majority still want divisions after an appropriate period, then I'm quite prepared to review that stance prior to the next elections. Thanks very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'd now ask Mr. Ron Owen to come and give his vision for the region. Thank you, Ron.
Friends, a very famous man said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Our region has gone through a gigantic dissever. At bottom is an effort to overthrow the principle that all people should be treated equally. This state has resumed our people's water and property to send the water elsewhere. They resumed 1,200 private properties instead of using their land for the dissection of Gympie. They removed 2/3 of our elected representatives. 2 current mayors united to vote together to remove our local community representation. These times have tested men's virtue. A massive upheaval has occurred. One man wanted to sell everything for the cheapest price. Traveston, airports, heritage buildings, rifle ranges, sale yards for subdivisions to the big developers. The opposition to this has created turmoil. Most sought to avert it, but that one man would rather tear our community to pieces rather than lose face in a debate. Our priority defence has only been to represent people's issues against this one-man rule. This election represents the moment of hope. The people will make their choice. I will work to end intimidation and promote openness, consulting with community surveys, community decision-making, breaking down barriers that separate people, creating a new community as one county. We will have many community halls. Our towns will retain separate identities, but all will have one county to be proud of. I visualise a TAFE building for apprenticeships in manufacturing, a university even if we have to produce our own. We have to stop condemning our youth to the exodus to the big cities. Council have got to develop industrial and housing estates using the revenue to reduce overall rates. The ratepayer have been used as a whipping post for far too long. Council offices can include banking and insurance. Developers must repair stormwater drainage in the housing estates. We need joint ventures for a biodiesel fuel plant and hydroelectrical power production from the Inskip Bar. We need mobile libraries, a 3rd bridge across the Mary, a modern rock crushing plant to utilise the mine overburden and tarmac bitumen laying machinery. We need Old Gympie Town, open museum on the retort block, similar to Ballarat's Sovereign Hill and council registered as a Commonwealth training organisation. People do not have to doubt my promises. I have proposed all of these ideas and more in the past 4 years. Many of my words have been twisted by knaves and published by fools to suggest contrary objectives. As any new idea shows up the 25 years of degeneracy, inadequacy and neglect. We have to develop the ties between our local communities, let us gain from our past hardships to seek a still fuller, richer life for our residents. So just as truth can flourish only when the journalist is given freedom of speech, so prosperity can come only when the farmer and businessman enjoy economic freedom. I believe if we write down in big letters, this damn wall will fall. Beliefs become reality. Like the Berlin Wall or the signage law, it will fall. For it cannot withstand justice, it cannot withstand truth. No obstruction can withstand the free will of the people.
Thank you, Ron. Our third question for the evening is, the Council has a social and cultural responsibility to the community. What do you believe those responsibilities are? And as Mayor, what will you do about it? Ron.
I have been heavily involved in non-profit organisations since arriving in Gympie 28 years ago. I believe in their continuance and in their increased importance in our community. I believe that with fundraising and with council support that they will grow and increase and the facilities will improve on a continued basis with growth. The community halls are the whole central part of our communities, and they are going to be, like Pike Creek and Chatsworth, they're going to be the cultural centres in the next 20 or 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we hear so much about the social capital of the community. And for those who have been in Corolla and Gympie and other parts of the Shire for any length of time, just have a look around and see what sort of social capital that not only the council, as your instrument, has put forward, but you, the people of Corolla, have demanded. I had the good fortune to attend the Sports Stars of the Year awards on Saturday night. And we have young kids representing this community and coming out as world #1 champions. The Corolla Council has, over a long period of time, made sure and developed those amenities and those facilities that enhance the social capital of our community. We have a national state art gallery. We have world-class sporting fields. We have an organisation that looks after our environment. We are the leaders in biodiversity and biocontrols. And next week we'll be talking to people who will look after who will advise us about the biotechnical control of pests. But this is social capital, ladies and gentlemen. It's your council on your behalf, ensuring that the community, the people of this community, are given every opportunity that metropolitan areas enjoy. We enjoy it here. As I said, our sporting fields are top class, are first class. Our cultural facilities are first class. Our organisations that work together, such as the Stedford Committee. And can I say against some people, Corolla, or Gympie rather, in 1885 was the very first place in Queensland to have Queensland state as Stedford, and then went on a rotational basis. But certainly, our social capital is excellent, our sporting facilities are excellent, our cultural amenities and facilities, they're excellent, and environmental enhancement is being looked after. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, yes, social aspects of this council would be very, very important. I would like to actually see increased funding for social services, especially with the elderly, but even if not more importantly, with the youth of our region. I've travelled around here at night a lot of times, and I've seen many, many young people walking our streets, anytime from midnight, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, especially Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. I know many candidates have had their signs ripped down. I expected mine to be ripped down anyway, but I know many others have also had a lot of damage. We have a lot of young people roaming around because they've got nothing better to do. I'd like to see more services for young people, including something like a new PCYC. As a youth, I used to attend the PYC when it was a PYC in Townsville on a regular basis. It made us gave us more morals and kept us off the streets at night. I would encourage more scouts and guides for the area. There again, the dam can be a big advantage for this, with canoeing, boating, rowing, all activities that can get the kids off the street and give them another interest rather than having them walking around, damaging property, breaking into houses, and just generally creating a higher rate of crime for our area. So yes, I would like to see increased funding, and I believe by having a council that would work with the state government, rather than against it all the time, the state government would look more favourably upon us and give us that increased funding. Thank you.
Talking about homeless, I see a QATV building sitting there in town. It's got all the features we need. All it needs is the front doors doing on it, and it can probably house 30 people. We as a council should be looking at these buildings that are sitting around and doing something for our youth and these people that are on our streets. We are really letting our community down. If we're going to be a full community, we need to do this. We've got land care, they're doing a lot for us. The council supports it now, I will also support that. We need to bring jobs into this community for our youth. The council isn't doing it. We should have tradespeople coming through. We need apprentices, we need trainees, we need operators. All these things should be done by our council. We are the ones that can do this. We should start it. We should be the gem of Queensland through our youth. We need to start doing this. Our aged care need help. Let's get in and help them. We are not a community anymore. Just think how big we are. There's 50,000 people here now, and we need to get on with the job. I can do part of it, our councillors will do the rest, and then we need you people. You need to vote us in so we can do the right thing for you and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that the council, the Gympie Regional Council, has the social responsibility to provide funding to the social, cultural and sporting outlooks in the Gympie regional area. I believe that both Killula Shire and Kilkeegan Shire currently provide support in these areas and pastimes, and when I'm there, I would ensure that this support is retained. Kilkeegan Shire currently supports iconic events such as the Kilkeegan Great Horse Ride and the Gameri Pumpkin Festival. And I'm sure I know that Killula Shire also supports the Tin Can Bay Seafood Festival and so forth, and I think that that should be retained. The libraries are an excellent service, and certainly they have to have funding. The art gallery in Township of Gympie is worthy of support. Also, I believe that whilst affordable housing is not a council issue, I think it's something that the Gympie Regional Council needs to push with state and federal government that we indicate affordable housing. In Kilkeegan Shire, we retain our elderly in their houses because we have a Commonwealth funded thing where we are able to provide them with what we term Meals on Wheels, and they have first aid dressings and they're taken off to meet specialists and doctors. And I think that that's still a requirement that can be put right across the Gympie Regional Council. I do believe that council do have a responsibility. I know people have said rumours around Gympie Town that I'm going to cut spending to libraries, galleries and so forth. A load of poppycock, and I think the runs are on the board in relation to Kilkeegan Shire. Thank you very much. I believe that the council's responsibility in relation to cultural and social aspects is tied intricately with our vision for the future. One of the things I would be proposing we do is conduct a series of forums throughout the Shire to determine what our future vision should be, and that the vision for the Shire be the vision of the people who have advise the council of what is needed. It is inappropriate that we should have a vision that is one cap fits all. There will be people at Tansy who have a vision what it should be, as people on the coast who have a totally different vision. I believe my voting record in council in the past, where I have always supported community activities, community events, sporting activities, the art gallery, library and the like, without exception, speaks for itself. I've had significant community involvement with a hands-on role, not just standing back and throwing money at the problem, but in a hands-on role with the Gympie District Health Council and the Cooloola Coast Local Ambulance Committee, and I have also assisted in the establishment of a number of other volunteer and community benefit groups on the coast which have been established to address needs identified, one of which is the Cooloola Coast Medical Transport Committee. I believe we also have a responsibility to acknowledge and address Indigenous issues in the area. There is a significant part of the Shire is subject to a native title claim, and Council has a role to play in relation to that, as well as we need to acknowledge the various and many different cultural and religious groups that exist in our Shire. We have responsibility in relation to youth, and a responsibility to assist community groups to build on opportunities and funding that is available in those areas which are predominantly state and health areas of state and federal areas of responsibility and funding. Social capital is a wonderful thing. The bottom line in our vision should be that Gympie Regional Council is a better place to live in 5 years' time than it is now.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'll now ask Mr. Mick Bernardis to come forward and deliver his vision for the future of Gympie. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, fellow candidates. The population of the new Gympie Regional Council will be approximately 43,000 people and is projected to be in excess of 56,000 by 2026. I have a substantial and proven track record in overviewing the growth and getting the job done. The evidence of growth and prosperity in Cooloola is seen in bricks and mortar. The increase in population from 32,000 people in 1996 to current 38,000 has been managed successfully. In 1997, $32 million was invested in Cooloola, and this grew annually to $171 million in 2007. Over this 11-year period, this represents a total injection of $840 million of investor confidence. And during this period, ladies and gentlemen, 3,394 new homes were built. Additionally, the number of road assessment notices increased by 2,548. There is in excess of 8,500 young students in our school systems, and 400 of these are grade 12 students who graduate annually. Ladies and gentlemen, I am motivated by the absolute need to have jobs created for these young people who want to remain in the security of their families in their hometown, as well as those who come here for a better lifestyle. I will lobby the government for a third state high school site, continue to oppose the construction of the Traviston Crossing Dam, lobby the government to honour its $10 million commitment to upgrade medical facilities, negotiate for the construction of a multi-level car park with safer patient transport corridor from the helipad to the general hospital, ensure that financial assistance continues for sporting, cultural, community groups and individuals, ensure that youth in Gympie, Kilkeven, Curra and Nelda have the same level of recreation facilities as enjoyed by those in Cooloola. Continue to lobby the state government and federal government for funding for the centre block at Rainbow Beach and for the multi-purpose centre at Campbell. Lobby for the commencement of the bypass, and I will ensure that the there is strict control over our budget processes to keep rates and charges at affordable levels. The Queensland Treasury Corporation appraised 104 councils, and Cooloola is the only council rated as very strong as a result of sound financial management. This indicates that Cooloola is the strongest and best managed council in Queensland. While the Cooloola budget and staffing is much greater than others, I am committed to ensuring that those from Kilkeevan and Tyro who will form part of the new Gympie Regional Council will not be disadvantaged or smothered by the larger council. I'm committed to ensure that everyone will share the benefits of Cooloola's unique, very strong financial rating. I have the same high level of energy, passion, as I had in my first and subsequent terms. And I'm confident that with my experience, knowledge, fairness and common sense, and my strong positive leadership style of leadership, I can continue to deliver sound judgment in the best interests of the Shire and the well-being of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. Our fourth question for the evening is, what do you believe are the new Regional Council's responsibilities in regard to development, and what is your plan to manage future growth and associated infrastructure costs? Meg.
Ladies and gentlemen, since I've been in office from 1970 and May 1976, and again recycled in 1997, I will live by the action that people have and the knowledge that people have dreams and aspirations. No matter what the project, whether it's a one-man business, a one-person business wanting to start, or it's a multi-employment application, but people have dreams and aspirations. And quite often, as council, we do override the town planning scheme in order to deal with applications on their merits. I think it's very important, ladies and gentlemen, that the councils retain the right to exercise discretion. But having said that, any person who wishes to start a business in the community must always comply with the conditions as outlined in the council's approvals. And so, ladies and gentlemen, any one of you sitting here this evening who has had dealing with council will understand that your dreams and aspirations should be most important, and it is paramount in council's considerations. So, ladies and gentlemen, with regards to the development, it is important, as I said a while ago, that the infrastructure that is provided for our community. I have it in the back of the room, and I hope that most of you take it. We'll have a look at the applications that we have approved over the last 5 years and the projects that are now in hand. So I would suggest, ladies and gentlemen, that with infrastructure and amenities and facilities, they have to be provided by the developer at no added cost to the consumer or the ratepayer.
To our region, I respect what Mr. Bernardus has done over the last few years in regard to this. I'd encourage a lot more young families to come to this region. And once again, this dam could play a major role in that. With the employment opportunities it could provide, a lot of people would come here just for the work. I'd encourage new housing estates, but they would have to be done in a sustainable, environmentally friendly way. All new developments would have to incorporate solar hot water systems, low energy lighting, possibly even solar electricity cells, double glazing, and I certainly wouldn't be building new developments near existing infrastructure which could be affected in the long term, like we've recently seen with the new developments near the sale yards. I believe commercial estates would have to be increased, and once again this would have to be done in areas that wouldn't affect urban development. But if we could do it in the right way, we would encourage more businesses to our area. The main thing we have to do is create jobs. Jobs will bring the people to our region. people will have children, and that will sustain the growth of our region. Thank you.
Thank you, people. I believe it's about time we had a very good, large industrial area in this town. To the southern end of town somewhere, I believe possibly where our new highway is going to go. That way we'll have not only train service to it, we'll also have a new highway. It needs to be 300 or 400 acres so we can draw good size industry out of Brisbane. We're only an hour and a half away. We are in the ideal spot. I bought my business here 14, 15 years ago for that reason. It's so close to Brisbane, you can get your gear in and out quick, there's not a problem. We should be using this as a source, that way we can employ our young people. We're not doing it, these sort of things need to be done. Mick has said about the businesses that he's helped, but he has not said about the ones that have left here and gone to Harvey Bay. We've also got Harvey Norman and a few of the others wanting to come here. They're having town planning problems. We need to sort this out. Infrastructure, the word means systems, it means framework. We haven't got it, we need to go back to basics, get it sorted out, and then let's go forward. We need to plan for our future now, not later, and we need to start at the bottom of the ladder and walk our way back up. Thank you.
I think Council has a responsibility to ensure that this area benefits from its proximity to South East Queensland. And we're in an ideal situation. The rules in the South East Queensland are becoming very prohibitive, and people will look towards this way for their economic development. We need to look at development of industrial estates and so forth, but in addition we need to have sensible laws and so forth. I don't see that council should be giving mates rates, for want of a better term, on height adjustments and setback distances and so forth. I believe that if we're going to have this sort of dispensation, then we need to look at our current laws so that everyone benefits from those particular amendments and so forth. I believe that the Gympie Regional Council needs to support the current Kalula Regional Development Bureau so that we can maximise our potential in the economic side of things and tourism. I think there's an ideal opportunity that we need to develop the tourism side of things so that the small townships like Campbell, Emmamore, Kilkeevan, Gamaria and so forth can establish micro businesses and benefit from this economic development that's occurring in this particular area. So all in all, I think that we do need to have industrial estates. I keep going back to what's happened in Kilkeevan, but that's because I'm Mayor of the Shire, and we have industrial estates. The Ouija Industrial Estate is now full, and I think that with a bit of prompting and so forth, we can certainly achieve those sort of benefits in the Gympie Regional Council. Thank you very much. There's been some publicity of late in relation to developers' contribution to infrastructure in subdivisions. My comment in relation to that is that you can't just pick a figure out of the air. The contribution needs to be reasonable and relevant to that subdivision. Kieran mentioned at the beginning that the fact that the new regional council is going to be the first council to the north of the state government South East Queensland corner and the plan that relates to that. We need to be able to benefit from that. We have a good road corridor to Brisbane, we have a good rail corridor to Brisbane, and Brisbane has a huge market in itself, and it has also access to the Port of Brisbane and access to Brisbane Airport for exports to get out of the country where appropriate, whilst they're fresh. We need to also ensure that whatever development we do have, that it is sustainable. We need to ensure that the development is clean, it doesn't impact on our lifestyle. If I can just hark back to the town planning again for a minute, there has been a lot of controversy in relation to planning approvals. that have been given in the last 6 to 12 months. There has been a suggestion made that if council has the numbers, it can simply override its town plan. Any exercise of discretion to vary a town plan needs to be made on sound planning reasons, not simply because somebody on the council has the numbers to ram it through. If we find that our plan is inappropriate, the correct procedure and the correct way it should be done is to change the plan to suit what situation in relation to which it is inappropriate. Otherwise, you end up, as we have, with a hodgepodge situation where council staff don't know what to advise people, because people go there, they get told something, if they don't like it, they trot upstairs and get the situation reviewed, and that is simply not good enough.
The secret of industrial estates and successful ones is communication. One of the most famous ones is the Manchester Ship Canal, which is a communication, and the Trafford Park was the first and biggest industrial park in the world in Manchester. And the only way you get successful industrial estates is because of that communication. We're very fortunate, as we've already heard from George and Peter, that we have got those means of communication. 4 years ago, I suggested, made a proposal to council that we develop an industrial park along those lines. Like most of my suggestions, they don't get very far. But I do hope to change that in the future, because we really need to introduce high-tech and high-quality job-producing industries into our area, and we have got the potential, and we have got people that are interested. But what we've got, and that has failed us, is that we've got an inequality of contributions from developers. One instance, we've had one person subdivision, and they're asked to pay $30,000 for their road contribution. And then we have a few hundred metres away, we have people being asked to pay $284 for a multi-subdivision. And this is, it's not enough, and that is why we haven't got the facilities. That's why the ratepayer is the whipping post again and again. And as well as that, it's unequitable. And so when people find out about these conditions, they do not come.
Thank you. And I'll now ask Mr. Daniel Pavoni to come forward and give us his thoughts of how he would lead the council. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, chairman, candidates. My name is Daniel Pavoni, and as you can see, I'm one of the 6 candidates running for mayor in the upcoming elections. I'm also the only candidate to publicly support the Traveston Crossing Dam project. I'd like to start with a little background on myself. I was born 42 years ago. I was educated through the Christian Brothers in Townsville, and after finishing year 12, I started an apprenticeship as a mechanic. On completion of the apprenticeship, I was offered a position to set up and run a branch of the company in Brisbane, which I accepted. Several years later, I was offered a position as general manager of a large machinery importing company. I held this position for a number of years until my wife and I purchased our property at Tanda, which is just southeast of Gympie, and followed our dream of starting a family and setting up a farm. I've always had a good outlook on life. I make no apologies for being an optimist. I believe every negative has a positive. You just need to look for it. And that is why when this dam was announced, I could already imagine all the great benefits it could bring. There is a perception being spread by certain parties that nobody wants this dam. However, after speaking to many people, I realised there was support for the project. But because of this perception, nobody would say so publicly. Well, I believe in freedom of speech. So I decided to run, to give the people who support the project an opportunity to vote for it, without worrying what their neighbours may think. I think the main thing that put a lot of people off it was the way it was announced. But that is all in the past, and Mr. Beattie has gone. The benefits of the dam, however, remain. We are looking at a project that would inject over $1.5 billion worth of infrastructure into this region. Its construction alone would employ some 4,500 people. Many of these people would be locals, and many of these people would spend their money in our region. Then we have the huge tourist potential that this dam can bring. Just as thousands of people travel to Emerald each year to visit and stay at the Fairburn Dam, thousands more would travel to our region. But more importantly, they would stay in our region and they would spend their money in our region. And this would in turn create even more job opportunities. Of course, we have the flood mitigation issue. This dam would substantially reduce the risk of flooding to our town, and in the event of a major flood, would reduce the height by around 4 metres. So I say to you, if you want this project to proceed, or if you believe it will proceed, and you would like your council to ensure that we gain the maximum benefit from it, then vote for it by voting for me, the only candidate to publicly support the project. Every vote I get will be assigned to the federal government that this project must go ahead. And if we get enough votes, it may just ensure that it does. Of course, the dam is just one issue, and there are many others. Like it or not, amalgamations have occurred. So let's look at its advantages. With our pooled resources, we should be able to tackle any and all challenges that we meet, and tackle them faster and easier than ever before. I've considered the issue of divisions, as I've already mentioned, and after much deliberation have decided that we're probably better off not having them. But I still keep an open mind on this. With divisions, you will have one representative for your area. Without divisions, you will have 9. That is 8 councillors and 1 mayor. And contacting any one or all of us would be as easy as picking up the phone. In fact, I would make it a strict policy that all ratepayers have access to every sitting council member's mobile phone number, including, if elected, my own. If elected, I would encourage far more public participation in council affairs, and I would ensure that council was open and transparent. You must never lose sight of the fact that this council works for you, not the other way around. Ladies and gentlemen, in just under a week's time, you will decide who gets this job. I believe all the candidates have our region's best interests at heart, but ultimately it's your decision, and I wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. The next question is, what will your policy be on climate change initiatives for the Shire, and how will you go about preserving the natural and rural environment of the region? Daniel.
Okay, I'm not an expert on climate change. We all know it's real. It's not a myth anymore. I would consult the experts. There are many people out there in the field who know what they're talking about, and I would encourage them to listen to them and take on their suggestions. I would like to maintain rural areas and encourage farmers to plant more native species. One way to do this would be a form of subsidies. In the future, I believe we can expect a lot more extremes of weather. This is part of the climate change, people, and it's with us. As we've seen up north recently, Emerald's gone underwater, Mackay's gone underwater, Rockhampton's gone underwater. It's only a matter of time before Gympie happens again. Once again, this dam can help us in this area. We're going to experience drier droughts and bigger floods. The dam can capture that water in the floods and release it during the dry periods. It's just common sense. Dams have worked for thousands of years. The Fairburn Dam recently captured over 1 million megalitres that would have otherwise gone through Emerald in the flood. How much damage is caused every time there is a flood to Gympie? And how much pain and suffering do we have to go through before people realise this is the only way we can stop it? Thank you.
I don't believe the dam's the answer, and I believe once it's full, and if the water comes over the top, we're still going to cop it. It's not going to make any difference. I believe we should be looking at a bit of town planning. Our town planning's wrong the way it's going right now. I was out Jones's Hill the other day. They've just done a subdivision out there, 2 cars in there and you can't get down the street. So our town planners aren't doing what they should be doing. If there's a fire over there, the people in that area are going to die. So there's something wrong with our town planning section, and that's not helping our environment. So that needs to be fixed up. I believe we should have more bikeways around town. That way we can get rid of a bit of our congestion. I believe we need a good bus service too. If we had a decent bus service, half the women in here would not be on the road at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Their kids would be able to get a bus home. Southside hasn't even got a bus service. How good's that for a town this size? Come on, let's get our act together. Thank you.
Climate change is obviously the topic around the world at present, and it's certainly a global issue. I'm not sure, though, exactly how Australia's contribution to this world event should be, because we are a very small country in comparison to the remainder of the world. I don't believe that we are a major pollutant when we look at the rest of the world. You only have to look at some of the developing countries and see what they're doing and so forth, and under Kyoto they don't have to participate to that extent. One of the other things that I'm concerned about is I believe that really climate change is appropriately a federal and state issue. How obviously council does need to play its part, and to that event I think that we need to maintain our recycling events and so forth. The major issue with climate change is the cost factor. Already you can see in the paper that we're going to have to pay more for electricity so that the electricity generating companies can meet their climate change contributions and so forth. I think that we've heard here tonight a number of schemes that are already going to increase the rates considerably in this area if we're going to go through with them and so forth. And I think that to meet the climate change obligations on a major scale will also impact on rates and so forth. I go back to the fact that I believe it's a federal and state issue. Certainly council can contribute to that. In short, whilst council has an obligation to embrace climate change, this has to be achieved using cost-effective principles. We have to continue to support our land care and coast care operations so that we don't have soil degeneration and so forth. But once again, I believe we need to look at the cost principles on this and make sure that what we're doing in this debate is cost effective. Thanks very much.
This may come as a bit of a surprise to many of you, but I think our major issue in dealing with climate change is having a council that's prepared to acknowledge that the phenomena actually exists. I don't know how many times in council I heard the joke about the blizzard that caused a global warming conference to be put off. But that sort of attitude and that sort of mentality is not doing us as a region nor the country as a whole any good. I agree that there's not a lot that we can do. There's a saying that you need to think globally and act locally. Insofar as local development is concerned, we need to ensure that there is no development in flood-prone areas. We had a battle some years ago convincing some on the council that we ought not allow any further urban development below the 100-year flood line. We need common sense applications of things like that. We need to protect our fragile areas, our Mary River and our coastal areas. There needs to be acknowledgement that the global warming has potential to impact on these to a huge degree. If anybody's been down the coast lately, you should see the erosion along the Inskip Peninsula, particularly in the northern end. There's been anything up to 4 or 5 metres of sand gone. You only need to turn the TV on and look at the huge exceptions of the normal weather pattern that are happening worldwide. We owe it to our younger generation, we owe it to our grandchildren. There may be some climate change sceptics here tonight, But I'm sure if we all do what little we can to ensure that we are more environmentally and globally warming aware, as little as we can do, our children, our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren will thank us. To suggest that humankind is not having an impact on the environment is to adopt that attitude just defies any form of common sense. You only need to travel to any developing country, Southeast Asia, China, India. People go through a whole generation there and never see blue sky. We don't want that in Australia, and we should do whatever we can, take whatever advice we can to ensure we don't. Thank you.
In 2005, I presented to Council a report on 5 separate studies showing that we would be, in the next 20 years, we will be receiving more extreme rain events and longer periods of drought. Also, I suggested and put a proposal to Council that we should use the Mary River Channel as a means of storing water, using weirs that actually can fall down once they fill up, like hollow weirs. They could be made of steel. When the water fills them up, they actually tip over, which would allow a flood to then proceed through unimpeded. I think that the major concern with the climate change is that everybody accepts that there is a climate change occurring. I think that over the last 12 months and this summer, some people, especially in here tonight, will probably think that it might be, going a bit cooler. But it has no relevance. The relevant thing is that the climate is changing. The climate might have been changing for 2,000 years. But as it is predicted, what is the major concern is the long periods of drought and the extreme rain events that we're going to get. Most of our coastal ground is too low, and the thought of building at 4-metre levels and sustaining development in those areas is just absolutely ridiculous. We have to take account of the rain events in all of our housing developments. I mean, in 1893, at Merloo, 907 millimetres in a 24-hour period. Just recently, there was nearly a metre fell at Rainbow Beach. These things are possible in a 24-hour period, and in the next 20 years, they could be much more extreme. We have to provide for the future, else we could lose it.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Campbell for reading 2 words or 4 words in my comment, and that is think globally, act locally. And certainly this is a catchcry of many people across this nation and universities. And your council, Kalula, does play its part in the conservation and environmental issues. We are supportive of the Green Core. We are supportive of the Green Farm, we are supportive of land care, and we are supportive of coast care. Your council does collect a levy for distribution to these organisations. The climate change and reduction of greenhouse problems is a concern for everyone. And most of us, like all of you, will sit down and listen to the scientific and academic comments about this. How can we reduce the greenhouse effects? But we have to work with the community groups to ensure that the effects are not accelerated, but reduced. And we must carry out those policies that will reduce the detrimental effects on our environment and our conservation areas. Again, I say very quickly, is that there is one major issue that will be facing the Kalula Shire and our state, and that's the Traviston Crossing Dam. And if we believe what the academics are saying, what the scientists are saying, they will say that 76 square kilometres of country underwater and the right vegetation, that will have a horrific effect on the greenhouse gas, on climate change. Can you imagine 76 square kilometres when the water level reduces in those prolonged droughts and lack of rainfall, the greenhouse effect, the greenhouse gases that will escape the growing vegetation for decades. So this is one of the reasons why the Trophy Crossing Dam ought not to proceed, because of the horrendous and detrimental effect on our climate change.
Thank you. I'll now ask Mr. George Groth, as the sixth candidate here tonight, to present his vision for Gympie and the region. Thank you, George.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, fellow candidates, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for having us here tonight, and thank you people for taking the time out to come. It's good to have such a great audience that really want to see our region go forward. It's good. I'm George Groth. I'm married. I have 5 adult children. I have 5 grandchildren. 3 of my children live in this region and 4 of my grandchildren. My eldest son lives in Kingaroy, so Mary doesn't miss out with me. I started my life as an apprentice motor mechanic for the Brisbane City Council. Through that, I saw a lot of council workings, infrastructure, and this council hasn't got any of it. We need to get on with it here. I worked for Mount Newman Mining in Western Australia. I was a leading hand after 12 months, the second youngest bloke on the shift, and I was acting foreman most of the time there. I was there 3 years. I came back, I worked for my old boss for a little while, and then started going my own way. 1983 saw me buy a service station in Brisbane, freehold site. I was doing 30,000 litres. Within 3 months we're doing 90. Mobil Oil come in, rebuilt the site for us. We went to 200,000. I left 2 years later. I bought Diversified, put 12 Renegades into a fleet and started franchising Renegades. A year later, we also bought a charter boat, which I became a coxswain and dive master. 89 saw us buy some land at Glenwood, and we used to come up here when I was doing nothing. So in 91 we moved up here, we loved it up here, we thought it's the greatest place to bring our children up. We sold our Renegade fleet, negotiated with Mobil and had leased my service station out to them. So I'm good at negotiating. When it comes to oil companies, they're not hard, they're not real easy to deal with. We sold our charter boat in 93, and with that we decided to buy Croft, which was a closed down business. That company now is producing 100 boats a year and employs 14 people. We moved to Gympie after 4 or 5 years ago. We started George's Crane Trucks, which moved all our equipment and everything out of Bonnick Road here in town, and we started the boat place, which gives us an outlet for our boats. So as you can see, on a go, I'm always moving forward, and I think that's what this Shire needs. We need to start looking forward and going forward. After looking at what's happening, the reason I ran, and I have a passion for this Shire and the people that come and talk to me, is the main reason why I decided to run for mayor. I believe to have 6 mayoral candidates and 42 councillor candidates standing in this election shows that the community's disapproval rate of our council and its leadership is through the roof. Both Kilkeevan and Gympie councils have depleted their workforce and their services. You are paying for it, you're not getting it, we need to get back. Our representatives have stopped listening to you, the ratepayers. To me, this election is all about service. You're paying for service and not receiving it. As Mayor, I'll be listening to you and you will get service. There's 3 words we need to look at. One's need, which is a requirement or something necessary. Want to is a wish or a desire. And wanted, suspected criminal or sought by police. Ron. I'm still going. Sorry, that's it. Sorry about that, Ron. I'll ignore that. It's just one I had. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our final question for tonight is, what will you do to ensure that the new regional council fully represents the entire new council region? George.
I believe as Mayor, I'll be everywhere for you, I will listen to you, and we will move forward. This Shire needs to move forward, or a region as we're now calling it. I believe it's time that we went forward, and let's go forward. I need to listen to you people, work properly with government departments, whether it's state or federal, get what I can for this region. We need to negotiate and get what we can for us. It's time our youth were looked after. We need more apprentices. We need more tradespeople. You cannot expect us to give you performance if we haven't got these things. We've got a depleted workforce. We need to do something about it now. If we leave it any longer, this town is going to be a shambles. We're not looking forward. We're not doing the things we need to do in this town. With water supply and sewage, bus service, every other town's got a bus service and a transit centre. Why haven't we? We need to go forward. I'll be listening to you. Thank you.
I believe that I've already addressed the question in the original presentation, but I'd like to reiterate that I believe that we need to certainly bring harmony back into the council area, and we need to move forward as one control body. I believe that if when elected mayor, I'd develop a council in which all councillors are included. I'd develop a portfolio system that gives councillors ownership. The portfolio system, as I've already said, what I envisages that councillors would have ownership of portfolios such as tourism and finance, etc. I'd establish liaison councillors in the 8 areas to develop connection between residents and councillors. This then overcomes the requirement for divisional councillors and is developed on distances covered and not necessarily population as would be required if divisions were established. I'd have regular council meetings in the local halls where the mayor and 8 councillors are present to hear the issues of concerned residents. I'd create openness and honesty by permitting questions after each general meeting. And perhaps one of the greater things I think is that I'd move the council chambers where people have great difficulty hearing proceedings and seeing proceedings. I'd move that to the historical Gympie City Council building of the 5 ways, thus developing a service area with rates, council, library, nursing mothers, senior citizens and the post office in close proximity with a lot of parking available so that elderly do not have to traipse up the hill to do their rates and so forth, and mothers with babes in prams and so forth have easy access. So once again, I certainly would work towards all the councillors participating in an active council that has harmony and a concerned workforce. Thanks very much. I do think a lot of the issues that this question raises have been mentioned and addressed in this evening already. Just to again go over those, I think we need to have de facto divisions. I think we need to move towards re-establishing divisions in 2012. There is a lot of concern in the regional communities as to how they're going to be represented and how their rates are going to be, what the rates are going to be on their property. I think we need to have a push to get the budget out as early as possible this year so those concerns that people have are addressed. I have a significant concern in relation to the council being Gympie-centric, and I would like you all to think carefully in relation to your voting for councillors. My fear is that the council will be Gympie-centric. Living in an outlying area of the Shire myself, I know what it's like to get the short end of the stick, and we need to ensure there is adequate representation on the new council. So I'd ask that you all bear that in mind when casting votes for councillors at the next election. There needs to be fair and equitable representation. The whole thing is to the community feeling that they are included, in my view, comes down to the question of leadership. It needs a leader who can convey to the community that they are part of the greater area, they are part of the Gympie Regional Council, and people don't feel disenfranchised and left out of things. We need a mayor who is seen throughout the Shire as a friend, not as an enemy. Thank you.
I believe that, and I can assure you that the only time you'll see me on the most wanted list is in the election results on Saturday night. I believe and have proposed 4 years ago a system of community surveys to individual communities on subjects relative to those communities, and they're to be delivered, unfortunately, with the rate bills twice a year. But when needed and in an emergency, those surveys could be done more frequently. I've also proposed 4 years ago that after general business, at every meeting, that we should have an open forum for all the general public to bring their issues to the council on council days. I'd also like to, if possible, if the council agrees, that we actually move forward and rotate the general meetings to different parts of the Shire, so that, say, every fourth meeting would be in Campbell, the next one would be in Kilkeven, the next one could be in Imble or Gameri, and throughout this region. That, with the return to divisions and through the divisional, local representation, which most of us are used to, I think that we can have a very, very bright future for our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow candidates. All candidates, all councillors, must be prepared to be full-time councillors. The remuneration as set by the tribunal must guarantee that they have no other position other than being full-time councillors. You deserve that, and the new region deserves it. There must not only be a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 4, and 5 days a week. They must be on call 7 days a week in the night times too. And whenever this council remains undivided, the council must be prepared to respond, no matter what part of the regional council, to all parts of the new Shire area. I've listened to the other comments about what the Kalula Council has done and the representation it has provided. Can I say, ladies and gentlemen, in my earlier comment, that $32 million was invested in this town by people who have confidence in our community in 1997. It rose to an unprecedented amount of $171 million and $840 million over the 11-year period. 3,394 new homes were built. People are coming here. They have confidence in the area. I have confidence in the area, and you must have also confidence in the area. With regard to representation, comments have been made about what the mayor doesn't do. Can I say that in 1997 I instituted the Meet the Mayor Council days, and over that 11-year period I attended over 1,400 community halls throughout those 11 years. Make myself available to the residents in the 16 halls 3 times annually. In this term alone, I've attended over 3,500 civic and community functions to make myself aware of what is going on in the community. I want to give recognition to those community groups who build vibrant communities. I've done all that. And I believe I've been a good representative and a fair representative and a representative that listens to what the people have got to say. I've heard this nonsense about this council is a failure. Have a look and see the bricks and mortar. Have a look and see the community groups that are working so hard. We are all contributing to the progress of this community. I want this community to go ahead, not fail as what other people here wish it to be.
Every ratepayer should be treated the same, regardless of where they live. Council should only be a matter of a phone call or an email away. We have the technology today. 20 years ago, how many of you had mobile phones? 10 years ago, how many of you had email? Today, no doubt, most of you have both. Contacting your council or councillors shouldn't be a problem, regardless of where you live. As I've already mentioned, I would ensure every ratepayer had access to all councillors and the mayor's mobile phone number, and they would be available for you 24 hours a day. I would encourage council meetings in outlying areas at least once to twice a year, and these would cover areas like Rainbow Beach, Tincan Bay, Kilkeevan, Gympie and other areas. I would like to see far more public participation in council affairs, and I believe one way to do this would be to change the current council meeting times. At the moment, if you want to go to the council and see what's going on, it's between 9 AM to 12 noon on a Tuesday, which means for most workers, you either have to take a day off or you can't go. I'd like to see these times changed to a more worker-friendly 6:30 PM to 9:30 PM and have an extra half an hour or so to take suggestions and comments from the public gallery. You must never forget, as I've already mentioned, this is your council and it works for you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all of the questions that we have for tonight. Before I hand over to Andrew to close for the evening, I'd like to thank the audience for the conduct that they've had here tonight and the way that you've certainly taken on board what our candidates have said. It is a big decision we've got on Saturday. We are going to, as this new council is, the decision needed to see how this community moves forward. So please, I hope that tonight has, and I'd like to thank Gympie Times and the Chamber of Commerce for conducting and allowing me this forum to assist in your decision for Saturday. I'd like to thank the candidates for the way they've conducted themselves here tonight and certainly kept to the timekeeping. It's made my job very easy. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be back near the slide. There's a box containing 40 documents. So if you feel like you're grabbing a copy of that, it shows you what this council has done in the last 4 years and prior to that. So that they're available. This council is progressive and it is moving ahead.
We're having self-promotion here tonight after the event. Let's all have a fair go at this.
No, come on, that's not. Look, on behalf of the Gympie Times and the Gympie Chamber of Commerce, thank you one and all for coming out tonight. It wouldn't have been the night that it is without the support, and we had a bit of debate about how many chairs to put out tonight. There was a bit of a debate whether we should have put out 250 or 300, but I think we've got sort of closer to 400, 400 people here tonight, so thank you one and all for coming out. My thanks to the candidates all for accepting to come along tonight. I hope the discussion that's taken place here tonight will help you make an educated decision come the election on Saturday. And I'll just finish up by saying don't miss your copy of the Gympie Times on Thursday. We've got a big 14-page wrap-up on all the candidates in the election, and I hope that too will help you make some educated decisions at the weekend. Thank you very much, and also thanks to Karen, sorry for adjudicating, and Indra down here for being our timekeeper. They've done some